Hello there, this is the anonymous anime critic. Here in Finland, complaining about slippery roads has turned into complaining about mosquitoes and e-scooters, and that is the first sign of summer. You know, not counting the lack of snow and the heat. Anyway, e-scooters are quite dangerous here in Finland, and as this month's helpful tip, I'd say that both the riders of these contraptions and all other pedestrians should wear helmets when they go outside here in Finland. That way, grandmas, teeny tiny children, and tourists, possibly like you, who are listening to this nonsense, can survive the harsh Finnish summer. And those sweaty snoopers at the Yellow Press here in Finland won't have so many nasty things to write about. Changing the subject, maybe one of you 5 subscribers of mine has noticed that I haven't published anything in a while, and that's just because I have been busy doing busy mind dulling stuff. Yeah. Maybe now during the summer or sometime later I'll be able to publish a bit more stuff. Or maybe not, we'll see how things go. Anyway, today's topic is discussing why Rick and Morty the anime was as bad as it was. And it was bad. But before we get into the anime, let's talk about the original show. We'll first jump to the magical year 2013 when Edward Snowden revealed that the United States was spying on everyone all the time electronically. An Argentinian pope was elected in the Vatican to the amazement of everyone. Selfies unfortunately became a global trend, and the original sci-fi animated series Rick and Morty, created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon, first aired on the American Adult Swim channel. Now, this isn't news, but the original Rick and Morty series is a generally well regarded TV show with at least 7 seasons produced so far and several more seasons ordered. The 8th season is currently airing while I'm recording this. The original Rick and Morty series currently holds an IMDb score of 9.1 out of 10, which maybe tells enough about its success. The show has also been nominated for many American TV awards, winning at least 2 Emmys. And if you're wondering what an Emmy is, it's America's grotesque and unelegant television award, which has been significantly improved in Finland with the slick and modern Golden Venla Award. That is the epitome of Finnish design. Unfortunately, Finnish television programs are not quite as good as American TV shows. I mean, our biggest internationally recognized TV shows are about depressed, middle-aged police officers who have weird family issues, too much action in their lives, and too little paperwork in their jobs. We are getting slightly off topic here. This video is still about the anime, so let's continue. In short, well, actually, this is not going to be short. I pre-wrote this and I've tried it a few times. This is a very long thought. But anyway, the original Rick and Morty series follows a brilliant but problematic inventor grandfather and his awkward young grandson as they adventure pretty much everywhere in the earth, in the planet Earth, not in the soil like worms, in the sky, and actually they do kind of, there was the pickle thing, it's like being a worm. I don't know. Anyway, in the earth, the sky, dimensions, kind of like reality and fiction and space and everywhere, just everywhere. The main characters are clearly inspired by Doc Brown and Marty McFly from the Back to the Future films, but the story between the series and the movies is completely different. They are wildly different. The original Rick and Morty TV series touches on topics like religions and science and philosophy and politics and everything else that sounds boring on paper, but they are sort of touched on in clever and imaginative, although frankly shallow ways. The stories between episodes in the series are very diverse, with each episode typically featuring its own kind of a different core idea. Without a doubt, the best aspects of the TV series, of this original TV series, are its carefully thought out script and capturing narrative. And I do highly recommend that you watch this original Rick and Morty series yourself if you for some reason haven't done it already, as the show is kind of a modern classic in many ways. I also do want to point out that I am not currently caught up in this most recent season 8, but I still think that what I've said here is kind of fair. Now let's fast forward to the not so magical year 2022. At this point, Rick and Morty had been successfully running for a long time, and comics based on the show had already been published for years. The rise of streaming services in the 2010s had made anime more accessible and popular in the West, and perhaps with a bit of cash money gleam in their eyes. Gleam? It doesn't matter. Something in their eyes, the Rick and Morty team announced plans for an anime version of the series. The reception to this announcement among fans seemed a bit mixed. Some people thought, great, more content for the Rick and Morty universe, while other people thought, hey, the anime hype train might not be the most good train to get on. It might be a bit unnecessary to make this kind of remake. So, there were those who liked the idea and those who didn't like the idea. That's what I'm getting at. And now for our final time jump. We arrive at the Olympic year 2024, when Rick and Morty the anime finally premiered in the United States on the Adult Swim channel. The series consists of 10 episodes, primarily directed and written by Takashi Sano, who has previously led a few decent anime titles. So, after 2 years of production, countless work hours, and likely a lot of dollars or yen or euros or rubles or whatever spent, the series' final result was... Okay, that's a drum roll. Weak. Like I said in the beginning of the video, the anime was bad. So, it's reasonable to ask, if the original Rick and Morty series was so good, what went wrong with the anime version? First mistake I'll mention is the voice acting. Well, of course, when you have great and recognizable voice actors that have made characters their own, and you then try to come and redo the voices with other actors, you are going to have some problems, at least in the English-speaking version of the anime. The fact that no actors from the original series came to do voice lines is quite evident. It creates a bit of weirdness into the anime, like something is missing. It's like if someone decided to hire Danny DeVito to play the lead part in a Rambo remake. No, wait, that would be actually amazing. I mean, Frank Reynolds in a forest, shooting police helicopters, shooting his toes off one by one to prevent losing his foot to hypothermia. I would much rather watch that than the probably upcoming industrial cleaner disappointing son of Rambo, Return of the Cash Cow film. Anyway, well, the weirdness in the anime would be like if someone hired Matt LeBlanc to play Rambo. He's a great actor, but the character would definitely be different, and the audience who would be there partly to see Stallone mumbling something about an Adrian might have quite a lot of readjusting to do to LeBlanc's performance. But to be fair to the anime show, the Japanese voice acting sounded to me a little better than the English one, and I'm not sure why. Maybe the intonation was somehow more in character in the Japanese voice acting, or the English voices not being the originals distracted me or something. I don't know, but the Japanese voice acting sounded to me a bit more on point. The other trouble about remaking a show with established and well-known characters is trying to be faithful to their original ideas and personalities while also doing something newly interesting with them. A good example would be Frasier or Better Call Saul, where an old established character is brought to more attention in new and interesting situations that help the audience learn more about the characters and the reality that surrounds them. In the anime, however, Rick, who has been established in the original show to be basically the most powerful being in the universe, for example, regularly challenging the authority of the President of the United States, appears in the anime as less powerful and more wimpy. Morty's sister Summer doesn't appear to be as indifferent as she has maybe been before, and Morty's dad is weird, but not the right kind of weird. He becomes quite powerful halfway in the show, and I do have to admit that some of the characters in the anime seem to maybe change from something more familiar into stronger and more independent selves, which isn't a bad thing in principle at all. But these transformations are not shown in a clear way, which reduces the watching pleasure and makes it feel that the characters are suddenly strangers, adding to the dumpster fire, which is the plot. And also adding to the confusion of the characters is the fact that you are shown many different versions of them. I wouldn't blame viewers who got confused about which Morty or Rick or Elle is this again. It is tough to follow this plot. And to end, the changes to what I thought were the real main characters are in my opinion weird and non-organic and too fast. And I also do recognize that the anime isn't about the same characters as the TV show, because the dimensions are apparently different. But I don't think that these new characters are properly introduced with their possibly different personalities from the show. So the only real frame of reference I have is the original show's characters, and these just seem weird compared to them. The plot is just the worst bit of the whole anime show. An episode in the series is fragmented into parts that don't flow logically, and this leaves the viewer guessing what is actually going on and what are the driving motivations for the characters. The series feels essentially like a fever dream, where you think you are awake, you go to the bathroom, you open the tap, you suddenly find yourself in the middle of your high school auditorium where a Santa Claus is teaching your class about performing taxidermy on poodles. Your teacher runs mad, then turns into your dad, all while a poor Kimi Räikkönen lookalike tries to wake you up to go run a marathon in the Athens 1896 Olympics. Then you wake up and wonder what was that all about, and go take a painkiller in the bathroom only to find that the tap is for some reason running. This is what it felt like watching this show. Stuff just happens without a clear reason. Now, actually, that to me wasn't a terrible demonstration of what it felt like to watch this story unfold. And I'll kind of try to prove that by giving you a very broad and bad summary of the plot now. Spoilers, by the way. Uh, this plot in the anime seems to circle around this idea around a multiverse that starts interacting with the real world of the Rick and Morty after a gaming console that Rick made for Morty malfunctions or something like that. And this leads Morty to find a girlfriend that can time travel or see the future or something, while also being some kind of an energy or something abstract. And there are all these versions of the main characters just running around through the anime, dying and kissing and killing and loving and growing old and crucially not always mattering to the final ending of the story or mattering really at all. And while all this is happening, there are fly aliens that want to destroy the world or Rick or something like this. And to be honest, this could be a very good story for an anime. There are all the right elements for success. It's just about making something understandable or interesting or captivating, and the anime really fails at this, at making anything understandable or captivating or interesting. And this is because there is a lot of rewinding and retelling situation or going to other realities in this anime, and the show is expecting the viewer to just get it or be interested in the mystery of these different stories or version of the stories or something. But honestly, when you are shown a sequence that might last for an episode and you assume it isn't real and just a dream or another dimension and it doesn't say something interesting, then it's just meaningless. There are episodes that don't contribute to the development of the story, and this story could have been told in half the episodes if all the unnecessary nonsense was carved out. This is my opinion. And yeah, this is the best that I can do to explain the messy plot and all this stuff. If you couldn't follow, I'm sorry, you'll just have to watch the first episode to get the gist of what I'm trying to say, because I think that will be enough to make you confused. Really confused. Really confused. And then the comedy is not there. That is to say, I wouldn't maybe call this anime a comedy at all. It tries to be more serious than the original show, and it has a different tone to it in general. Like, I'll admit there were some scenes that were clearly intended to be comedic, but the most comedic characters in the anime were some of the side characters, and the comedy they brought was bland at best. For example, the first time you see the fly leader alien being in the first episode, and he's munching on some nachos or whatever flies eat, and when you see this Mr. King Admiral Nimbus, the living fish stick in episode 5, the and there's the dancing stuff. There is a bit of comedy in that, but there is not that type of comedy, or really I would say any type of comedy in this series very much. And I personally didn't laugh or chuckle or smile while watching this show. I was bored, but maybe that's just how we are in Finland. Yeah, that could be it as well. Um, anyway, the tones on the whole in the anime were much more serious, with the main characters and their arcs touching on loss and separation, and the characters changing to be more powerful and so on. While usually in the original Rick and Morty show, the comedy comes from mistakes or the characters' personalities, but neither of these two things are sort of present in a same type of way in the anime. I would say that in the original show, comedy was the main thing, but there is enough of seriousness to keep the story a bit more dramatic also at times. Whereas in this anime, the main thing seems to be drama, and the very side bit is the comedy. And I think most viewers I expected more and better quality of comedy. Maybe something different, but at least in the same kind of quantity as the original. But on the other hand, when your anime show is being compared to one where Dan Harmon is one of the writers, you are going to seem a bit more bland, like toast. And that's just how it is. And also, like Asian and American cultures, they have maybe different senses on humor, and maybe these also affected all these sorts of things, like in the screenwriting process and the thinking process and all this stuff. That's like pure speculation on my part, but cultural differences might have also played a part in the comedy not being there. The animation and the art style in this, like in any other anime, was liked by some and vitriolically hated by others. I don't think that the makers of the anime could have gotten away uh, with a new art style and animation criticism free. And I do think that the point of the anime version of Rick and Morty was to redo things about the original, especially the visuals. However, the visuals were quite divisive in this anime. Some have called the animation more fluid, detailed, and anime like, and others have called the animation unfinished and ugly. I have to say that I personally agree a bit more with the latter. The characters seem to me a bit childish looking and wonky and visually edgeless. I mean, the visuals of the originals are not in any way perfect either. They are also childish and wonky as well, but they are that in a more enjoyable way, and they feel more alive. The characters feel more alive. It's hard to explain, and I think it's more a personal preference, which is it's okay. And on the other hand, I do admit that the backgrounds in the anime seemed more fluid and more pretty than in the original show, but I didn't really pay attention to that as much as the characters. In the end, I have to say that I'm not sure if the animation played a part in this anime being so universally bad. However, it was divisive. And also, the storytelling with the animation was clearly less comedic in the anime, which I think took people by surprise and might have led to people resenting the visuals more, although that is a bit of speculation. I overall I still think that I um, should mention the visuals as the ish in the four ish reasons why this was a bad anime, not because it was universally bad, but because of the divisiveness and the parts that to me were lacking. In the end, I also want to bring out that Takashi Sano had made at least two short films about Rick and Morty in a more anime style before this anime series came out. One was called Rick and Morty versus Genocider, and the other was called Summer Meets God and Rick Meets Evil. Both the shorts were better received than the anime. Part of that is, in my opinion, that they had ever so slightly clearer stories and a lot of really crazy, cool, understandable action. So I just want to say that the makers of this anime are capable of doing good and interesting stuff, but we all have bad days. Every Francis Ford Coppola has their Megalopolis, and every David Lynch has their Dune. However, this anime series was not clear enough, and it may have depended on the viewer having watched the original series to understand what is going on too much. Um, the anime seemed a cheap copy of the original rather than its own show, uh, and I do appreciate the people behind the anime being brave and trying to make a very different style of a story from the original, but perhaps they should have been a bit braver still and made the show into something even more different from the original, giving the anime more distinction from the original. I would review this anime as a 4 out of 10. If you end up watching this anime, please do so ironically and don't try to be invested in it. Otherwise, you are at a serious risk to be very, very confused for a few hours after watching. Yeah, I think that's enough. Goodbye. Hello there. This is the anonymous anime critic. That is very hard to say. I had to do that so many times. Anyway, here in Finland complaining about fuck me. Quite dangerous, and as these months, why are the S's like this always with anyway, I'll just fucking quit this. The dog is barking. I don't know if you can hear it. You probably can. This is not a good time. Bad dog. Yeah, exactly. But before that, let's jump to the magical year 2013. Edward Snowden revealed that the United States was spying on everyone, all the time, electronically, and an Argentinian difficult word I don't know if you can hear this, but now someone is mowing the lawn. Yeah, this is not a good place to record this setup I have in sauna.